All right, let's get an update then from Zambia, where vote counting is currently underway, where millions of people cast their ballots in closely contested general and presidential elections. Large queues formed outside many polling stations yesterday, suggesting turnout had been high. President Edgar Lungu is seeking a second term in office, but faces a strong challenge from his main rival, Hakainde Hichilema. Let's talk more on this. We have him on the line this time, Ringisai Chikohomero, who is a researcher and a political analyst. I do hope we have you on a better line, so thanks for being patient with us, and good afternoon once again.
Thanks, Flo. Thank you for having me.
All right, so of course we've heard that observers are quite concerned that President Edgar Lungu wouldn't take a loss very easily if he were to lose in these elections, and concern around whether or not he'll use violent incidents to justify a clampdown and an invalidation of those election results as they start to come in. Talk to us about those concerns on the ground and what is currently happening in Zambia, as we do understand that vote counting is underway.
Yes, so vote counting is on the way, and the Electoral Commission of Zambia had promised that it would go live with results from 3 p.m. this afternoon. They later on made an announcement that they would only be able to start at 4 p.m., and we are online trying to follow that, and they haven't started. But one only hopes all is well. We have seen in the last few weeks President Lungu preemptive moves towards trying to position himself and consolidate his power by using the military. 2 weeks ago, the military was deployed in a pre-election environment for the first time in Zambia since the advent of multi-party elections in 1991. So we already see that President Lungu was trying to prepare for the outcome that is, if it's not favorable to him, he was prepared to use the pretext of violence. I mean, make no mistake, there has been some instance of violence, but he was prepared to use the pretext of violence to deploy the army and to intimidate the citizens. In the event that he wins and the opposition protests, he was also already prepared to have the army in place to cover up any protest from the opposition.
We do understand that there was, of course, an announcement by the Electoral Commission of Zambia that those results would be known within 72 hours after the polls closed. Right now, it doesn't seem that that would necessarily be the case. Do we have any sort of indication as to when we'll start to hear about those results? I mean, I did hear that millions of Zambians did come out to vote, and in fact, some polling stations had to remain way over their official opening time. And that obviously points to the fact that there's a lot of counting that's having to happen, and certainly might have to pass that 72 hours that was announced. What are we hearing at this stage then?
Okay, so at the moment we are a bit concerned on the Electoral Commission postponement of the beginning of the announcement of results. They had mentioned online this morning that the first set of results will start trickling in at 3 p.m. and they'll be live. But then they later on made an announcement that they can only begin to pronounce the results at 4 p.m. Now it's almost something to 5, and they haven't started. This is a bit concerning, given that there's been a lot of machinations on the side of the ruling party, and there's been a lot of movement and posturing on the side of the president. And one gets a bit concerned to say, is this delay operational and technical based on the overwhelming numbers of Zambians who went to the polls last night, or is it purely a strategy? We do hope that the Electoral Commission will stick to its word and give us the final result within 72 hours.
Yeah.
Just bear in mind that this is a harmonized election for both House of Assembly and the President. So the collation and the transmission of these results might indeed take time given the logistical challenges. I think what is worse also given the internet interruptions that have been seen.
And I want to talk to that, because there was a lot of conversation around the fact that there was disruptions to the internet. Several social media sites had been stopped, and there were some other irregularities during the time of voting. Will this affect the outcome of those elections? I mean, what can you tell us about those interruptions? And certainly to the international eye, that doesn't look very good now, does it?
No, it doesn't. So, there is always a confidence deficit with institutions in most countries in Southern Africa. In a few surveys, it pointed that Zambians really do not have faith or confidence in the institutions to be transparent and to be legitimately handle the elections. Now, what has happened is the opposition and various civil society organizations, they try to put in place systems that will enable them to transmit results in real time from any polling station via the internet, via the social media. And one sees this disruption of the internet in that light, that there is an attempt to disrupt the flow of information, to block out some areas which are really not reachable, and then create a certain narrative from that perspective. And it has been very disturbing. Most Zambians have resorted to using the VPN and other methods to try and counter what the government has done to the main internet line.
Yeah, and just in closing, as we wrap up our conversation, I mean, it's also very important to look at this sort of more broadly in terms of, how these elections in Zambia and what's happening there may affect the SADC region. What are your thoughts as we wrap up our conversation?
Okay, so it's concerning in relation to SADC. The first thing is SADC observer mission failed to go to Zambia. And where you have the EU observer mission went to Zambia, the AU observer mission went to Zambia, but the SADC, the regional bloc, said they cannot go by reason of COVID. But we know the history of SADC election observers, that they almost always endorse the elections, notwithstanding the reality on the ground. Zambia has been somewhat stable in terms of electoral processes in the last 2 or 3 decades. But this can be a defining moment as the authoritarian trends are stepping in, especially during President Lungu's reign. And this is of concern to see that the Zambian government and the SADC itself is failing to reinforce its own electoral governance principles and code of conduct that they adopted. And this is a very worrying trend, given the trends that have been happening in the Southern African region.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so very much for giving us your input this afternoon on vote counting and the political situation in Zambia at the moment. That's Ringisai Chikohomero, who's a researcher and political analyst.